And so when we redeem the body, we redeem the promised land. When we do the work of the self, we do the work of spirit, right? So the Feast of Trumpets comes after the Feast of Tabernacles. And when we look at the Feast of Trumpets was only read during a full moon or a new moon. And it was basically a song that was sung to usher in what the Jews considered their new year, right? And the title of Rosh Hashanah could also be translated into the head of the year. And when we look astrologically at what zodiac sign represents the head of the year, it would in fact be Aries. And so I give thanks to Spirit for validating this message to be given during this full moon in Aries, because Spirit is really dealing with us in the energy of Aries, meaning dealing with the self. How you see the self, how you interact with the self, how the self shows up in the world as on a collective level, and how the self shows up in the world on an individual level. So like I was saying earlier, if you want to know how where you are as it relates to where we are in the year and the work that you've done, if you want to know why your harvest is showing up the way that it is during this fall season, as we come into the season of what some will call hibernation, if you want to know why your harvest is showing up the way that it's showing up, you want to definitely look back at the full moon in Libra, which was on April the 11th. I'm sorry, April the 16th was the last full moon in Libra. You want to look at where your mind was during that time, where your thoughts were during that time, what seeds you planted during that time. And when you understand where you were during this full moon in Libra on April the 16th, Spirit is going to give you a clear picture of what to expect during these next few winter months. Because these were the mental seeds that you were planting during this full moon in Libra. That was on April 16th, 2022. Okay? So when we continue to look more metaphysically at the Feast of Tabernacles, there's two words that I want to look at here. I want to look at wilderness and I want to look at promised land. When we look metaphysically at wilderness, it translates into meaning or to representing an individual consciousness, right? An individual consciousness and the multitude of undisciplined and uncultivated thoughts. Wilderness translates into meaning or to representing an individual consciousness and the multitude of undisciplined and uncultivated thoughts. So here we see Spirit first dealing with us as it relates to moving from one level of consciousness and elevating into the next, or moving from one state of being into a new state of being, or from moving from mortal man and taking up our own Christ consciousness, picking up our own cross into walking with it. So ascending from your lower man to your higher nature. So Spirit began to deal with us in Passover, which is teaching us the lesson of passing over from one aspect of ourselves and ascending to the highest aspect of ourselves. Then Spirit took us to the point of Pentecost, which was showing us the unfoldment of the spiritual mind when we take on the mission of ascension, right? Or when we take on the awareness of our Christ consciousness. Letting us know that all of those mental attitudes, all of those mental seeds that we've been planting, you're going to begin to see the harvest of your mind. You're going to begin to see the harvest of your thinking. And so soon, as we move to the end of the year, a lot of us will begin to see if we planted gardens of weeds or if we planted gardens of flowers and of herbs and of fruits and of vegetables, things that are going to sustain you, right? So wilderness translates into or represents an individual consciousness and the multitude of undisciplined and uncultivated thoughts. So within this full moon in Aries, Spirit is really dealing with us as it relates to your undisciplined thoughts. What parts of your nature aren't you disciplining? What parts of your mind aren't you cultivating or taking time to understand or to uproot and to replant? What parts of yourself are you leaving uncultivated? Because as long as you put off the work, the longer you're going to find yourself walking a journey in the wilderness. And you don't need 50 tarot readings to tell you that. Do the work of the self for real or continue to walk in an illusion. Because once all the hype of spirituality goes away, once all of the fad of spirituality goes away, once all of the glitz and the glams and the power that comes with playing in the spirit, once all of those things fall away, once your audience goes away, right? Once your yes men go away, once the agreeable people who agree with what you see and how you see, once all of those things go away, the only thing that you're going to be left with is yourself. So you better be sure that you're really doing the work of disciplining everything within your nature that is out of line or out of order. Making sure that you're taking the time to really cultivate your own garden. Because I keep saying, you know, we can get on these platforms and find all the wonderful words to say and find all the most wonderful things to accomplish, and none of it means nothing if you didn't accomplish the one thing that we've all been set on this journey to accomplish, which is really understanding the nature of the self and bringing the nature of the self back into harmony with the nature of this reality, the nature of the planet, right? This is where Spirit has us in a season of really disciplining the body, disciplining the mind, and disciplining the self in order for you to really cultivate the spirit, okay? So wilderness translates into the multitude of undisciplined and uncultivated thoughts. Let's look at promised land. When we look at promised land, it translates into the realization of divine substance when there was up in a man a great desire to be free from the bondage of ignorance and animal propensities. His journey to the promised land begins, right? So your journey you don't arrive at the promised land when you come into $1 million or you come into 1 million followers or you have access to things that you never thought that you would have access to, right? The promised land is not making the right connections, right? The promised land is not getting to the biggest bag. The promised land is not arriving to a point in life where you have nothing else to worry about. The promised land is a realization of divine substance, where there wells up in a man a great desire to be free from the bondage of ignorance, the bondage of not knowing, right? Free from the bondage of animal propensities, meaning your senses, leaning on the senses, leaning on the emotion, operating in the emotion and out of the emotion, worrying about only what you can get out of this life. being fixated on manifesting every little thing, turning manifestation into a get rich quick scheme, right? How can we be free from these things, right? And when we come to the realization that none of these things are going to make your existence or break your existence, you make your first connection with divine substance. When you understand that all you ever really needed was this, of what's in here, trusting your intuition, trusting that you have the answers necessary to take you to the places in life that you need to be, and not for you to arrive there to be able to go to the highest building and say, look, I made it, look what I accomplished. But this journey is really for you to understand that the only thing and the only person you ever needed was yourself. The only mission that you ever had to understand was the mission of your own divine substance. Metaphysically, Promised Land goes on to say that the Promised Land represents, or goes on to say that the redeemed body is the Promised Land. When you have full anonymity, I'm sure I said that wrong, over your own body. When you have full control over your own thoughts. When you have the power to decide for your own self, that you're not influenced by any other thing outside of you. The redeemed body is the Promised Land, right? When man rediscovers this lost domain, all the promises of the scripture will be fulfilled. So the fulfilling of the scripture has nothing to do with anything outside of us. Not with any government outside of us, not with any church or religious system outside of us, right? But it really represents the body and the mind and really understanding those two. That's the only lost domain that we're all trying to rediscover or recapture for ourselves. This life journey is really about rediscovering yourself, rediscovering your childlike nature, rediscovering how you understand source and how you interact with source, when really what you're doing is interacting with yourself, right? So the Promised Land tells us that the redeemed body is the Promised Land, and that when man rediscovers this lost domain, the scriptures will be fulfilled. So when you do the work of the self, you're inevitably fulfilling the scripture, right? And you could be fulfilling the scripture in a good way, and you see the goodness and the favor of source, or you could be fulfilling the scripture in a way to where you damn your whole existence, and not damning yourself with things outside of you or connections outside of you, but you damn your own self because you deny your own self. You damn your own self when you don't trust what it is that you know to be true. You damn yourself when you deny the work of the self, right? And so when we make the choice to do the work, to do the shadow work, to engage in the death process, we're really fulfilling our own scriptures. We're writing our own Bibles. Your life becomes a grimoire that generations after us will look on and be able to either reflect and find their own salvation in, right? Or that the generations that come after us, we leave complete turmoil, therefore making it impossible for them to really come to the understanding of what this whole existence is about. It's not about money. It's not about accumulating things. It's not about achieving goals. It's not about manifesting superficial things. Get those things. Get whatever it is that you feel like you should be doing in this lifetime. Get those things, but don't negate the journey of the self. Understand that that is what will always matter, right?